We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello, and welcome to episode 159 of Deer Diaries. Folks, don't adjust your dial. You're on the right podcast feed. This is Deer Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff of Brew Hoop. It's no longer the Milwaukee metro area basketball podcast presented by members of the basket blog Brew Hoop, nor is it the Brew Hoop podcast. It's Deer Diaries. So I'm Riley Feldman, one of your usual co-hosts. I'm going to continue to be one of your usual co-hosts. Thanks for all who have listened over the years, going through all the name changes and everything. We're hoping this is the final big change, and we can kind of stick with this for a while heading forward. And for all those who are, maybe this is the first time you're listening, welcome aboard. You're catching us right before the start of the 2023-2024 NBA season. And we got some Bucks to talk about, and I couldn't be happier to be talking about it with some of my other usual co-hosts. We have here Kyle Carr, staffer of Brew Hoop, and co-managing editor emeritus Adam Paris are here. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Good. It's been a good time. I'm back. I was in Colorado for the weekend. It was a good time. And I feel refreshed. I feel ready to laugh at people. It's been long overdue. I haven't had a chance to do it since the Bucks embarrassingly got gentlemen swept. But now it's revenge season.
Adam, how are you?
I'm doing well. It was a pretty decent summer, pretty low key for me. We didn't do anything too extravagant, but I did eat at a Culver's tonight to sort of get into the Wisconsin mood. And as I walked out, the Giannis news broke, so that was very fitting, of course, that I was able to find my fix down in Charleston and still be able to get in the right mindset for what we're about to discuss.
It's a beautiful thing. Before we get into the Giannis news, which will lead the topics, obviously, just for people who might have listened for a long time, people who are listening for the first time, with the name change, we're going to change the format of the podcast a little bit. We're going to have our usual host. We're going to rotate other staffers in as well as co-hosts throughout the season. But we're going to have three major segments in each podcast. So the first one is going to be what we learned, which is going to be an opportunity to try and talk about what we took away from the games of the previous week. Instead of trying to do a specific breakdown of each game, which you could read over on brewhoop.com, which we'll have covered fully there, trying to figure out, as this is a maiden voyage for Adrian Griffin and a lot of guys here, what it is this team is going to ultimately end up being and what we can learn week to week in the regular season. So that's the opening segment. Then if we make factual errors, which we will, I guarantee you we will, or you want to quibble with a point, expand on a point we talked about, you're going to have the Buck the Hosts segment second. You can go ahead and comment on the usual weekly posts that go up on Brew Hoop if you have something to tell us that we got wrong. And if there's nothing there, then we'll have a free talk segment where we'll talk a little bit about something related to the Bucks that isn't tied directly to the games that just were. And then, of course, for the longtime listeners, miscellaneous segment, it's not going away. Rapid fires here. Riley's ink, fountain pen, whatever reviews here. Kyle's film review, Vans Warped Tour, and of course, the weekly predictions at the end of each podcast. So that's what's going to be coming up here on Deer Diaries in the coming season and beyond. But without further ado, let's go into what we learned. And the first thing we learned, guys, today, thank God we waited to record today. Thank you, Kyle, for coming back late from Colorado you had a premonition, I know. So we record this on time.
It's not that I came back late. It's that I figured I'm going to get back. I landed at like 1. And as soon as I walked through the door, Sterling immediately mobbed me and had me hang out with him. And I was like, I'm exhausted and I need to sleep. So that is more. I wasn't sure. Plus, I was flying Frontier. No guarantees your flight leaves on time.
Yeah. Did you have the Jesus handle the entire way? Or like,
I contemplated it and I just said, yeah, it's in God's hands now. I'm in God's area. I'm in God's zone. So what he wants to do, that's up to him.
Well, God delivered, because Giannis signs a 3-year, $186 million extension. Earlier tonight, the news came across. It will go through the 2027-2028 season if he exercises a player option in that season. Per Bobby Marks over at ESPN, the reason why Giannis went for the extension now rather than waiting until next season, in which had he waited, he would have had access to a much larger dollar-wise extension. He could do this shorter extension now, get it, go through it, sign a longer one in 2028 to avoid coming up against the over 38 rule, which is a provision in the NBA CBA where you can't hand contracts to guys 4 years or longer if they're going to turn 38 during the course of that contract or if they're over 38. So I know the expectation was, okay, Giannis will wait till next year just as a money play, regardless of if he already has intentions on staying. In this case, he gets obviously a good chunk of cash now and sets himself up for another mega extension. And if in 2028, presumably the cap has gone up a gazillion %, Giannis is going to be fine. So that's the news that came across. Sort of, I mean, big, but a little out of nowhere. I guess the expectation was we were going to wait. Kyle, I know you have a take. I know we're going to clear the floor in a minute. Adam, we'll go to you first before we turn it over to Kyle.
No, just go to, I think we should just go to Kyle.
Kyle, what's the take then? What was your thoughts? Where were you? What was your thoughts? Just run us through the moment, please.
I did not think this extension was going to happen just because we were getting close to the deadline. I didn't even know when the deadline was, but I just figured, okay, they made the trade for Dame. Giannis is probably at least happier. We'll see what happens. He'll sign the extension just next year because makes a lot more money doing so. I didn't know about this over 38 rule. I was in the dining room with my kids. They were playing with Play-Doh. It was, normal toddler things. And I saw the tweet that Giannis signed the extension. And my first thought was, oh, hell yeah, Giannis signed the extension. And then everyone's like, oh, that's a lot of money. And I was like, I don't care. Giannis signed the extension. But when I really sit here and think about it, John Horst is what people think Pat Riley is. Like, everyone acts like Pat Riley is this godfather. He has this charisma. He's able to get deals done. He makes things happen. And yet, I've seen John Horst just quietly go about his business, take Pat Riley to the cleaners, beat him down, put him in this hospice. We're done with him, all right? Because John Horst gets Damian Lillard, even though he only wanted Miami. And Pat Riley thought, I could just throw these lowball offers. No, that's not going to work. John Horst comes in. I'm going to take your shit. Continue on. Now we get to the extension. Oh, Giannis is saying that he might leave. Of course, everyone's going to think he's going to Miami. Pat Riley's going to do all these things. And what does John Horst do? Okay, yeah, here's a bunch of money. Here you go, Giannis. Let's make this deal happen. Makes the deal happen. All I'm saying is John Horst is already putting Pat Riley in hospice. He's going to put Pat Riley down permanently. Pretty good. We'll just let Pat Riley go about his way. And that is what John Horst does. And for every single Brian Windhorst moron out there, I want you to just look at all the dumb things you've said and just be miserable about it, because Giannis has decided to stay in Milwaukee because, unlike the rest of you, he understands loyalty. He understands what the right thing to do and not just say dumb things for click. All right. And for everyone that had their Photoshops, please, once again, take that, put it in your trash bin, and I never want to hear from you incels ever again.
I just want to go back, just so we're clear. We don't think John Horst is actually going to physically harm Pat Riley. We're talking him as a GM.
We don't condone elder abuse on the
Deer Diaries podcast. Yes.
Metaphorically, yes, put him into retirement.
Adam,
thanks.
Wait, so you were at Culver's.
This is why I let Kyle lead, is that he was there. There was an energy permeating from him that only a Frontier flight can give you. This is what's kind of weird about this is I can't say I was all that anxious about Giannis not re-signing, given all of the machinations of the Dame trade and everything else. I'm excited that I'm thrilled that he's staying around. Obviously, I mean, everyone in Milwaukee should be overjoyed. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Most exciting to me is basically that it spares us all a year of conversation, probably a year or 2 years of conversation from talking heads that would have been pretty insufferable, knowing kind of exactly how a lot of us in Milwaukee feel about it. And you could tell from the Giannis comments, even in the Sam Amick article this morning, where he was asked about what he said on the podcast. And Giannis is like, well, I said the same thing I always say, which is something we always remember as Bucks fans, but no one else seems to remember the second he opens his mouth to say one sort of honest statement about what his future could be. So I'm thrilled he's sticking around and just overjoyed that he's here. And I think the the knock on effect of this is, to me, is uh, we'll get into this later, but there's a little bit less stress now hanging over the organization. I think particularly in this first year, I think there's much less stress for them to win a title, I would say, or even like get to the finals. I think there's a little less stress on them. Like I don't think that means we should hold them to any less of an expectation, but I think there's less stress around the organization to have the highest levels of success right off the bat.
I agree pretty much all the way through. When we discussed the Adrian Griffin hiring and the sort of weirdness around that, and was this guy Giannis's hire or not? What's the deal with that? I said at the time, if Giannis really wanted this guy, that's fine, but please make the commitment of, okay, I'm going to stick around to see what the results are. And once the Dame trade came through, my worries about this getting done essentially went to nil. Like, I think this was the exact kind of trade that would get it over the line. The fact that some cap machinations make it all helpful for him to make the decision now was great. But he's a honorable guy. I think it truly is heartfelt to him to be one of the very few top level athletes who stays within their city the entirety of their career. Like sometimes things just happen at the end, things get weird, but he looks upon the Kobe Bryants and the Dirk Nowitzkis of the world, and he sees that as like the prime example, and the fact that he was able to win one in Milwaukee, and ownership, and as Kyle said, GM John Horst, as Kyle so eloquently put it, as GM John Horst did, he assembled yet again, pulled another rabbit out of his hat to take what was I didn't feel strongly in like a positive sense for the team before the Dame trade, and to turn it around and throw Dame out there and maybe finally find some young guys that could have some upside. Like it's astounding what John Horst has been able to do, and Giannis is following through on exactly what he said in all those quotes. Yes, it makes things a little uneasy for us because, like, well, how much are we going to be able to do? But you just kind of have to trust the front office to get it done, and they have time and again. So I salute Giannis. I thank him for all the years of service. I look forward to the years to come. Even if him signing this extension now really takes a blow at the Monday Morning Media Roundup and the most random outlets I would be able to find Giannis quotes in. We take a hit there, but I'm willing to sacrifice for the good of the team. So
Well, it was also one of those, like, I didn't feel any pressure. Like, I didn't feel any unease because even if Giannis had decided he was going to leave, he won a title in Milwaukee. Like, he gave the org 10 years. I can't ask more out of the guy. Everything he's accomplished, everything he's done, it would have just been okay, yeah, I mean, do what you want to do, and you've already won your championship. You came good on the promise that you made. So I guess I was always like relaxed, but then I also remember that it's not that I was not worried. It's just the talking heads and Riley's now lack of finding random places that are going to say something. It just got really annoying, and to think of like that thought process, and then just how toxic NBA Twitter and even Bucks Twitter can get when things don't go well. And then it's just nice where it's like, okay, all of that at least is off to the side, and I don't have to worry about it again until 2028. And by then, who knows if Giannis has won 2 or 3 more championships. Again, I'm not going to be that upset if he ever does decide to leave, because he's done everything he said he did, and he said if they build a team that can allow him to win, he'll stay. And that's what John Horst did.
all right. Any final thoughts on? I don't want to play down the significance of it, but it more or less feels correct, feels right. I guess I figured it was going to get done one way or the other. So the fan
suck at Brian Windhorst. That's all I got.
Fitting. Beautiful. Well, from the highs of Giannis signing an extension, we'll go to the lows of a little bit of off-court drama. This is going to be the start, I guess, formally of what we learned. Terry Stotts is no longer the lead assistant coach. Very funny that apparently Giannis totally nonplussed by the departure of Terry Stotts. He's like, I'm cool, stick around. Per reporting, it's still a little unclear. So this past Thursday, Terry Stotts resigned, and he went right to Woj to tell everybody about it. Apparently, Adrian Griffin had no clue it was coming. Terry Stotts texted Damian Lillard and say, "Hey, bro, I'm out." Damian was like, "Damn, okay." There was reporting; it was very unclear that there was some sort of incident in the shoot around leading up to the OKC Thunder preseason game where Stotts left a huddle to talk with Dame, and Griffin told him, "Hey, Terry, get over here," or something in front of the players. And then the final thing I'll note to set this up: this was as the aforementioned Brian Windhorst mentioned, the match between Stotts and Griffin was an arranged marriage, more or less, between from John Horst. I think the idea being, okay, we're going to go for this rookie head coach. Let's get one of the most qualified possible assistant lead head coaches, a guy who could be the offensive X's and O's guy. When Terry Stotts, obviously the connection with Dame, like a lot to be excited about. It just didn't work out. Clash of ideals, clash of how the load of responsibility would get doled out. Kyle, let's go to you first. You worried? Does this portend anything? I mean, it's obviously not great if your lead assistant coach leaves a week before the regular season starts, but how concerned are you about the whole situation?
Not very. Like, it was weird seeing it, and initially it was just he stepped down, and there was no reason for it. It was kind of like, okay, maybe it's a health thing, maybe it was a family thing, maybe it could have just been we don't know, and it's something that he needs to just step away for his own sake or family. Okay. And then people are, of course, trying to be detectives and act like they have insider knowledge and everything. And I was like, oh, it's because he didn't get along with Adrian Griffin. Again, I was like, we don't know anything. And it feels like as more and more information came out, I've kind of just been more and more indifferent, just thinking it's a little bit weird. And I think the more or less arranged marriage kind of aspect where I was like, okay, have a top assistant. I guess if the shoot around really was what kind of broke Terry Stotts into resigning, then it's like, okay, that's just some ego. It just seems like his ego got hurt. And I can understand that this guy was a relatively successful head coach for a long time. It's not as though he was a scrub. Like, he has succeeded as a head coach. And then to try and be an assistant for a rookie, I'm sure is a little bit of an adjustment to make, and probably something that at first you're like, yeah, okay, I can be down with this. And after time, you just realize maybe this isn't the right fit. So I think it's just more of I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it was just, if it wasn't for the timing part where it was a week before the season, I think it would have been a non-factor in my opinion. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not really concerned. I just think it was odd and weird, but sometimes you do try and make things work and then you just realize it doesn't. Instead of torpedoing the regular season and having a big drama-filled thing at some point, just leave early. And I'm sure by next week, it's not going to be like, I'm sure even by now, it's like not even that big of it, like going to have that much of an impact.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I just looked this up because I was curious. I mean, Terry Stotts is 65 years old. That's pretty old to have to be an assistant coach and go like revert back to that after years of being the head coach. I think you're spot on, Kyle. I think that would be a hard thing for, I mean, if just thinking about that generally in almost any business, the idea of being the boss and then trying to adapt to a role when you're on the very waning days of your career to being told what to do by someone else, I think would probably be a difficult thing. And, some people can probably handle it. Some people can. And clearly Terry Stotts, maybe it just wasn't for him. Maybe he didn't agree with, what Adrian Griffin was trying to do. But at the same time, I mean, Griffin has to set his own culture and have his own ideas for what he wants to do with the team. And if Stotts isn't following that, then, so I guess that's his prerogative, but that's going to cause more turmoil. And so like Kyle said, it's probably better to just get it out before that's going to be an issue throughout the whole season. And, offensively, I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird in the offseason when people were like, thank God we have Terry Stotts. Everything's going to be solved. And like, that was before Dame came and, Riley signaling to himself, thank you for being the straw man for all of those people. But I mean, who knows? The one issue, I guess, is that you don't have a ton of veteran presence head coaching experience on there anymore. Or, you have Joe Prunty, who's back again, and so now he'll be the lead assistant and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, what that means to a Bucks fan is, I guess, kind of just the sameness, staleness, right? So you have to kind of hope that Adrian Griffin and everything that he's bringing in is going to inject all of the kind of newness, because there's a lot of holdovers. Like there's still Josh Oppenheimer, there's still Vin Baker. So there's a lot of the old kind of still sticking around there. Obviously, Prunty's learned some other stuff from going other places, but there's a lot of holdovers. But it seems like Griffin has lots of new ideas, and you just kind of hope that they're still able to find some offensive groove, and that ultimately the talent is going to win out. And there should be easier ways to find offense now with the current format of the team.
Yeah, I am the straw man. I was concerned about the Griffin hire than Terry Stotts. And Terry Stotts was a successful coach, but we don't have to pretend that Terry Stotts is the end all be all of coaches. He was a perfectly serviceable, like good coach. The big difference being that Griffin was like the defensive mind, presumably. And it's not to imply at all that Griffin doesn't know how to call an offense. I totally believe that he does. It's just the ways of thinking are like, if your mode of thinking is primarily focused on how you fit the defense together, it could just take some time. I think there's going to be a learning curve for Griffin as we go along. What was weird, and Van pointed this out, other people pointed this out before Stotts even left, the the 2 games that we got before he left with Giannis and Dame playing together, just like the pick and roll, which we just all assumed was going to be spammed to oblivion. They just really didn't run it. It's like, okay, what's Terry thinking here? It's like, is that Terry calling it? Is that Griffin calling it? So I think there is going to be a learning curve there. And like I said, as soon as, if anything goes sideways, yes, the Giannis signing the extension takes the pressure off there, but there's nobody going to be standing like for Griffin's. Terry Stotts could have been a scapegoat, but at the same time, I don't blame Griffin at all, because it's kind of messed up that your boss hired the guy who's there essentially to replace you if shit goes sideways. Like I'd be looking a little sideways at Terry too. I think demerits for Terry for not being competent enough to shut the hell up until Griffin goes sideways to take over in a hostile coup. And if he couldn't do that, I really appreciate, like you guys said, that he pieced out now, which is, it's the whole thing, like Kyle said, it's very strange. And everybody trotting out Griffin's like PhD in leadership. It's like, oh man, it couldn't get worse, could it?
Wait, why would anyone do that?
Okay. Well, it's just, it's just like I didn't know it was coming at all. It's like, really? You did? I know the spin doctors are telling you to just keep it on the DL, but anyways, I think
that's also a new thing we learned. We're not going to get any answers out of Adrian Griffin. There's an actual question that needs to be asked.
I love just how bewildered he looks, like taking questions. His eyes are so wide open. I'm like, like, Adrian, calm down. It's okay. He's just got to learn from the bud. Like, just look totally dazed and confused. Don't care. Like, rest, or what is it? He started using energy and effort. Just go to the Jason Kidd hits. We love it. The other question I have for you guys before I move off of this, because I think ultimately we're going to be okay. It's just be a lot longer until the offense really starts clicking, I think, because it's probably going to come down a lot more to the guys on the court figuring out based off of whatever Griffin is putting together. Do you think the elevation, presumed, I don't think it's official yet, the presumed elevation of Joe Prunty to lead assistant is what got Giannis over the line to take the Supermax extension? Did Giannis remember that they took the Celtics to 7 when they really shouldn't have? And do you think that had a deciding factor?
I will say, someone did put in the comments in the Giannis extension that the Bucks did have some extra money after Terry Stotts left, and that probably went to Giannis. So I think there is something to it.
Can you sort? We should source that.
Give that a shot.
I am going to look it up. Give me a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I will look it up. In the meantime, go ahead, Adam, with your thought. I saw the comment and it was great.
Okay. While Kyle is pulling that up,
I think that's the kind of analysis that you can just cut up as an ad for this podcast.
For this podcast,
Jack the Tripper on the Brew Hoop comments.
Thank you, Jack the Tripper.
That makes sense. They did just free up all that Terry Stotts money.
It's a good promo for the podcast. It's an even better promo for the community at Brew Hoop, which remains strong, irreverent, and insane. All right, let's go to other thoughts outside of Terry Stotts. Adam has some like important questions, so we're gonna do some more stupid stuff real quick. Kyle, why don't you let us know what you learned this past week?
I have two things that I learned. One, AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. can contribute to this team right now, in my opinion. AJ Green can shoot. We knew that, but the question had always been, is he going to be a complete liability on defense? And so far, he hasn't shown that. I think he's been, like, he's not a good defender. Let's not get carried away. But I think he can at least be passable and doing what we had hoped Kyle Korver was going to be able to do back in 2020. Like, he's no worse than Kyle Korver, which I think was encouraging. Kyle Korver got game time. So I think AJ Green can contribute. I don't think he's going to be, a mainstay in the rotation, but it wouldn't surprise me if he went like 3 or 4 games where he was consistently getting rotation minutes and doing solid. Andre Jackson Jr. is just, he is someone that he just has the basketball IQ and athletic ability that it's going to be really hard to not want to play him, because offensively there's still a lot of question marks, but defensively he is able to stay in front of his guy. He's very active. And I think in this defensive scheme that Adrian Griffin has, where it's going to be more aggressive, that actually suits him more. And his basketball IQ, he seems to know when to make the cuts, when to cut, when to make a pass. So I think he's someone that also will be able to contribute as well. Again, I don't expect it to be a consistent thing, and I'm sure there's going to be a rookie wall that he's going to hit, but at the very least, right now in the early seasons, and especially in that tournament, why not give him a shot? The other thing is Marjon Beauchamp is going to have games where everyone's going to be saying he needs to be starting, because he's going to shoot like 7 of 10 from the field and 4 or 5 from 3. And we're all going to be like, oh my God, this is great. And there are going to be games where Marjon Beauchamp shoots 2 of 10 from the field and 0 of 6 from 3. And we're just going to be like, okay, I guess. And this is all going to be coming off the bench. So Marjon will shoot his way into annoying discourse. That is my other thing I learned from preseason.
It does. I mean, it does. Marjon does feel like the person that's going to have that. You're right. He's probably going to engender the most annoying discourse all year. He's going to be the most up and down, which is the opposite of what you kind of want if someone is progressing as a player, is to be a little bit more consistent. I mean, this is an interesting trio of players. I do have to say, I don't think I've turned more on any player than AJ Green, who I really enjoy watching his shot, and I expect it to go in more than almost any other Buck. Sans Damian Lillard, I guess now, when he's shooting a 3. Andre Jackson Jr., the bigger Ragu, as I like to call him, because he just does a lot of stuff, and you can tell people really like that about him. I've never had a player that I think could score 0 points per game, but I absolutely believe needs to be force-fed minutes. I could not imagine anyone else on this roster being that impotent offensively, but still having some sort of ability to contribute to the team. I mean, I don't think he will, and he, like, rookies are always pretty bad, but his defense, I think, would probably be, I don't know, he might already be like the 3rd best defender on the team, behind Giannis and Brook. Probably our best perimeter defender, just based on literally like 4 games of watching him actually navigate screens, unlike some other people. And I think, like Kyle said, I mean, with the way that Griffin wants to play defense, I have some questions about this later. He absolutely fits into that, given his athletic ability, and he stands out in more ways. I mean, just watching the Bucks play OKC, I think, yeah, they played OKC, and then I also watched the Spurs Rockets game the other night, one half of it, and I just couldn't believe how slow the Bucks feel in comparison to watching any of those teams that have people with like some modicum of athleticism, compared to most of everyone else on the Bucks. So I like that about Andre Jackson Jr., that he provides a little bit of wiggle, I think, in the open court as a transition partner, given that's something that Griffin wants to add to the repertoire.
I thought for sure we were this close to Adam jumping the shark and doing some AJJ comparison to Victor Wembanyama. I thought that was coming for sure.
I mean,
if you squint,
both are rookies.
Yeah,
technically they are both rookies. I'm glad that's not where you went, Adam, but eventually it'll come full circle. Totally agree on Andre Jackson Jr. I am a believer in him much more than Marjan. We don't have to worry about the Marjan discussion because he'll be on another team by like February. So I'm not concerned about that. Andre Jackson Jr., it's, as Kyle said, the read and react in the open court is nuts to watch. And he can be a secondary ball handler in certain lineups. Like he's somewhat competent at that, more competent than a lot of guys we've had run through the bench before. He'll have some sort of rookie wall, but if you're already scoring 2 points a game, how bad can the wall really be? So I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm not sure. We're not going to, unless Adam has it lined up. I don't plan on doing the 8-man rotation right now. No. Adam has a look in his eyes, so we'll see. I don't imagine him being in the playoff rotation, but I think he probably will play a pretty good chunk of minutes. The only AJ Green thought I have now is great nickname. I'm sorry. The poster on Real GM on the Bucks board called him A. Ray Green in reference to Ray Allen, which I think is, it's a stretch. I'm not going to lie.
Never change.
It's a bit of a stretch. but I love the alliteration, and I want to stay on that story. Let's stay on the AJ Green, Ray Allen story where the connection is. I just thought it was very funny in the first Memphis game that AJ Green, he makes his debut, and within 4 minutes, he, like Dante, he just did a bunch of stuff. He blew up some plays. He had like a nice assist, a good 3. I wonder if he'll get some run if guys are getting rest as like, oh, he'll fill in starting lineups as like the shooter guy. I have no idea. I think he's listed at 6'4". That's how you know that the basketballreference.com lies. He's like, it has to be 5'6" compared to everybody else. And his arms are just so small, and he can blow up some plays. He looks like he's been eating a lot of horse meat this summer, which is good. Whether or not he can hang against real defenses enough. We've gotten by with like guys who can gun. That's what Malik Beasley's here to do. That's what Bryn Forbes was here to do. Why couldn't AJ Green be the next one? So I'm not fully all the way there yet, Kyle, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. And Marjan, I'm not out all the way, but we'll just have to see. I am A-okay if he's trade bait. I salute John Horst for keeping him around just in case it turns out, but I would not wouldn't be surprised if he's out there in discussions just to help sweeten up something to get another piece in another trade. So, but yeah, like Adam said, interesting trio of guys. All 3 of them are going to get playing time, I think, in some measure. How much, we'll just have to see. And talking about one more, before we go to Adam's serious ones, I have one more takeaway. It's that Robin Lopez is cooked. He's done. It's over. He has been horrific. He cannot move. He cannot score. He cannot move laterally. He just can't play anymore. And I appreciate that Brooke forced us to sign him again as a condition of his coming back. He said, Giannis gets that. I want some of mine. And so he hooked his brother up. Salute, respect. I just have some numbers here. I believe he appeared in all 5 playoff games, or playoff, please God, no, in all 5 preseason games. And
this is Victory Cigar playoff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just romping teams. He has a rebound percentage of 5.1%. That compares to Brooks' only 9.0% from last season. Those percentage breakdown: 7.3% offensive rebounds, 2.8 for defensive rebounds. I give Robin a little bit of slack here because it seems we're using him as we would have used Brooke to try and essentially screen off guys and let another guy get the rebound and go right away. Usually it's like Bobby Portis, whoever is running out there. So I give him a little bit of slack there. At a certain point, it was literally 1.1% rebound percentage. So I was like, how is that even possible for somebody Robin's size? He also has a negative 4.8 net rating, the offensive rating while he's on the court, 93.1, the defensive rating, 97.9. Still sub 100 on the defensive rating. That's not bad, actually.
That's stingy.
The reason why I bring Robin up is not to clown on him. It is a clown on him because if he wanted to gracefully retire Terry Stotts style, I'd respect that. The thing I'm curious about with Robin is, where does Bobby fit in? We have preconceived notions of the fact that Bobby can play in a big lineup or in a smaller lineup as one of the bigs, and that unlocks like the Giannis at center lineups. Bobby does something a little bit different if he's playing the nominal 5. We know what he can do. We think we know how he's going to fit in. Bobby played the fewest number of preseason minutes he's ever played in his entire career, which isn't necessarily an indicator for how he's going to get used in the regular season. Maybe Griffin was just giving him rest because he had the FIBA World Cup. We know what Bobby's going to be able to do. I would just keep an eye on the big man rotation because I really think it's going to become exceedingly obvious very quickly that Robin is not going to be for even like the 10 to 12 to, God forbid, 15 minutes we were thinking we were going to play him. I don't think that's going to work. I think we're going to get blitzed in those minutes, and it's just going to be either running Bobby out there. Do we go with Bobby? Is Giannis put back out there? Marcus Bolden just signed to a 2-way. I doubt he's the solution. I mean, maybe Robin's going to get the minutes. Yeah, if we're getting a thumbs down from Adam. I'm just saying keep an eye on the big man rotation because right now it's a little unclear to me what it's going to look like once the regular season hits.
Yeah, I don't know what Robin Lopez is here to do. So
he's awful.
So last
right?
year,
am I out of my mind?
No, he's not
Okay.
good. Like the Bucks.
Okay,
This is why I've been screaming the Bucks need another big, and they need to figure it out.
Last year, Robin only played in 37 games for the Cavs and averaged 8 minutes a game. So, and Mamadi Diakite played in 26 games and averaged 8 minutes a game for them.
Yeah, but the thing is, he was only able to. It's a little bit different because they had the two bigs. They have Mobley and Allen who are able to play. I'm just kidding. I think my early indicator whether or not Adrian Griffin is going to get canned is how many minutes are we rubbing Robin like a month into the season. I'll give him a month to kind of get it out of his system and do whatever side deal Horst did to get Brooke back. But yeah, the upside is Brooke looks great. So shout out Brooke. Yeah. So that's what I learned.
Let's say they run Giannis at 5 lineups. Who's filling the 4 in those situations? Do you guys think?
Probably Jay, I would guess.
Oh God.
This is like a variant of the 8-man
rotation. This is where Andre Jackson Jr. might actually get some run. And I'm not joking. Like you can maybe go a little bit smaller, but like if you go Giannis and Bobby at the 5 and 4, or even, I mean, we saw Chris be a 4 at times in the small ball lineup. So it could be Jay, it could be Andre Jackson Jr., it could be Chris, could be those 3 guys if it's not Bobby.
I just wonder if Griffin is going to be rating guys based off of what they bring on defense. I'm just really interested what he makes of Bobby because Bobby can play defense and he's a great defensive rebounder and he can kind of get the offense started on a transition if he gets the rebound. But what is the expectation? And is Griffin going to be Jesus Christ, Robin Lopez is getting a lot of minutes out there and is like a tall traffic cone. So it can't be that high of expectations, but I'm just keeping an eye on it. Just keeping it, nothing crazy yet. It's not even the regular season, but that's what I took away from the preseason at least. How about you, Adam? What did you learn in the Bucks preseason?
I'll just do one of mine because I have some questions that I have for both of you for the free talk segment that might get into what I have. So I was going to come into this segment with a more pessimistic attitude until Giannis signed the extension, and so I decided to appreciate him for that and appreciate him for the things that he's given us and appreciate him for what he does on the basketball court. But I think it's going to be a learning curve, obviously for Giannis and Dame to get used to playing to one another, but maybe also for me to get used to, I'll do an I statement, for me and myself to get used to watching this play out in real time, what actual, I don't think we're a super team, but teams with actual 2 superstars go through when they're trying to figure out who's going to handle the ball handling, because that's what the Bucks have now, are 2 actual superstars, and trying to figure out what that dance is going to look like between the 2 of them. I can't say I have much patience for some of the stuff Giannis used to have to do and was doing in just one of the preseason games. And obviously that's what the whole season is about, is figuring that out. But when I see him shoot a 3 without passing much, I was already didn't like it, and I don't like it more. And I also think, I mean, Marcus Johnson said probably more times than I can ever remember on the last broadcast. Like, I don't know if that's the best shot by Giannis. You got another guy out there. And so I just think it's going to take a long time to get that chemistry worked out and have Giannis kind of rewire his brain to understand I don't have to do everything. And so when you think about like the Bucks offense previously, like if Giannis wasn't making a play, I guess you could give it to Brook to try and maybe make a play, but you'd probably have to run a pick and roll to get him to do something. You give it to Drew, and maybe something good would happen, but sometimes some facepalm things would happen. Chris was probably your best option to get you out of jams, but now like every single possession there's a good option, and it's putting the ball in Damian Lillard's hands, and most of the time that's a pretty good / efficient shot to be able to do something good on the court. So I don't know. I know it's going to take a long time, but I've never seen a guy like go like when I looked at his stats and it was 26 points on like, I don't know, 18 shots or whatever. It was a great game for Giannis in that last game. And then I couldn't remember seeing a game like that where he's done that. And I felt kind of more negative about it. So maybe what I learned is it's going to take longer than I thought for them to work out playing together.
There has been plenty of times where Giannis has done things where I'm like, why are we doing this? We don't need to do that. In particular, there's a moment I think they were playing the Thunder where Giannis like gets the ball, gets to the top of the key, kind of like does a pump, like tried to pump fake, and then like got the defender in the air. He like tried leaning in and throwing a shot, but it's like, why? Why did you do that? That doesn't make sense. And I think it is kind of that one of those things where there's probably going to need to be some hard wiring, and Giannis just having to remember, I do have a guy that is on the NBA 75 literally right next to me and can shoot from anywhere on this court. I should give him the ball. So hopefully that's just preseason. Giannis is trying stuff out. But yeah, it was just like moments like that where you just go, okay, but why did you do that? That doesn't, I don't understand this.
The only thing I could think of watching Giannis do stupid things was like, what the F was Hakeem teaching this guy? Is Hakeem a double agent? Who the hell is paying Hakeem to torch us? Why? And I actually looked, I was like, was Hakeem taking threes? Hakeem took a total of 124 threes in his career. That's not bad. So it's not impossible that for whatever reason that he's made 20% of them. So not a great 3-point shooter. I hope Hakeem isn't showing Giannis how to take threes. And I hope that's not the thing that's driven home, because there have been fleeting moments where they would run the pick and roll. He would get to the paint and then he showed off like decent footwork. Giannis, we talk about it constantly. He has it in the bag. He can do it. It's just a mindset switch. And what's most frustrating about it is they spam the pick and roll. The first two possessions they play together against the Lakers, and it's a wide open look for Jay Crowder, who clangs it, of course. And then it's Giannis getting on, I think it was on the elbow, and then he gets right past Anthony Davis because he has great position set up from that pick and roll. Because it's like, now we have a point guard, 2 point guards, sort of. We'll talk campaign sometime during the season. But he has a point guard who can hit the entry passes. We don't have to hope that Chris is able to lean over the power forward that's defending him to get Giannis a looping pass in horrible position. And Giannis, whatever position Giannis or Brook gets, they get it lost because they have to reach up and they lose their base or whatever. This is a totally different thing now. So I believe that it will come together. I really don't have a lot of worries. However, it is annoying that Giannis still takes threes, even though, like you guys said, we have one of the greatest shooters ever. And he's, again, going to be surrounded by shooters. And he's going to get set up in the paint a lot. And I know it's a lot to ask of the guy to just get beat up on a lot. And that's partially why I think he's staying away from center minutes is good, because it saves him a little bit on the defensive end. But that's going to be the role. Like, if Damian Lillard was your dream teammate, which is more or less what we heard for years and years, is like, oh, I just love that guy's mentality, which I believe is true. This is going to be a big test of how much can Giannis change the way that he approaches. He's done it before. I think, as you said, Adam, he felt that he needed to play a certain aggressive style to carry the team. And hopefully just over the course of the coming months, he sees, okay, it's not ideal for me. It's not ideal for the team. Yeah, it's not as highlight reel worthy of me, like going from the perimeter, like kind of stepping past a guy, getting past another guy, and then dunking, but your numbers are going to go up, or they're going to be even more efficient or whatever. So, not officially worried yet, but you kind of I guess I just wish like, oh, it would be if you had Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo together, what would it look like? And unfortunately, like you said, Adam, it's going to actually take some time to come together. I think we'll get there, but I was just expecting it to be like I don't know, like something out of a fairy tale right away. And this just doesn't happen, I guess, which is fine. Any final takeaways on any of this? No?
Nah.
Okay. Well, in that case, that's what we learned this week. Let's go on to free talk because we haven't recorded anything under this podcast, so nobody can buck the host just yet. Adam, we're going to turn it over to you. This is your version of rapid fire, except they're like relevant and not stupid questions. So please,
They're actual questions about this
they're
team.
real questions.
I do have some real questions, and we'll end with a grand finale. Okay, I don't think we've talked about this since Kyle. You recorded the podcast after the Dame trade, but thoughts on Drew now being rerouted to Boston, and does it change anything about your feelings about either Bucks standing in the East, feelings about the trade, etc.?
Nothing has changed. It was kind of one of those where it's like once they were kind of saying they're going to find another place for Drew, I was like, there are teams out there that could use someone like Drew, and Boston was one of those teams. Philly, I thought, could have been another potential one if they would have said, okay, we'll give you James Harden. But I don't think it changes my feelings on the Bucks standing. I think Giannis and Dame is still a combo that should win them the East. So nothing changed, but I'm not surprised that it was Boston. I wish it wasn't Boston, but I'm not surprised. That it's a game.
It's all love, Drew, but I hope we absolutely kill him. I hope he plays horrific. I hope he comes out and he's his usual playoff self. He will be immortalized in Milwaukee for the plays that he had during our title run, which are some of the greatest highlights the franchise has ever had in its entire history. However, he's now on the other team, and I know he's going to want to kill us. He might press it a little bit trying to kill us. So we got to be more than willing to kill him. And you know what? I think it's great drama. It's going to be, if we face the Celtics in the playoffs, can you imagine? Adam Silver is hoping that some of the refs rig these games without him knowing about it so that we get that result, because that is going to sell numbers. I like Kyle said, I don't view it as really changing my view on like what the upper limit is. Drew will be a great defender and will make things difficult for like Damian Lillard and company, and he'll know some of our quirks and everything like that. But it also depends on like how he plays and how that coaching staff views, like, is he best with what starting lineup? Does he, like, I think he was coming off the bench in the preseason. Was that just them slow rolling him in? We'll see what his actual final form is. But I just think it's great drama. That's my main takeaway.
Okay. That's good. That's good to hear. And also, Riley, I wanted to get, do you feel like the Dame trade, people haven't properly appreciated how the Dame trade has upgraded Milwaukee's ceiling, or no?
No, not at all. People, understandably, everybody pretends they watch a lot of NBA basketball, but there's like maybe 2 people on the entire planet that actually watch like a lot of random NBA basketball. I don't think people really understood how much of an anchor Drew could be at times in the playoffs, especially. And Drew was an awesome defender, but part of it too got like a lot of players hyping him up, rightfully so. But it's like, okay, now we're starting to kind of lose the plot a little bit of who Drew Holiday is. An extremely skilled and great defender and like a pretty skilled offensive player. But he's not Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard started slow, and it's like, okay, we have like an actual point guard. Nobody on the coaching staff, nobody in this franchise has ever played with a point guard like that. Drew was a shooting guard that was cosplaying as a point guard because we did my turn, your turn, who brings the ball up the floor, and he could actually dribble. People haven't appreciated how different this is going to be. And maybe the defense will be kind of a work in progress because Damian Lillard is not anywhere near the defender, but the offensive sky is the limit. It's night and day. So I don't think people have appreciated yet how big of a change this is.
Is that what you felt, Kyle?
Yeah, it was one of those. I'm bummed to see Drew leave, but it's Damian Lillard. Again, you're getting arguably one of these apparently one of the 75 greatest players in NBA history. That's not something we have seen in Milwaukee. Like, we got lucky with Giannis being one of the greatest ever. To add someone of that caliber to be a top 10, 15 player in the league, you got to make that move. As much as it stinks, but it's like on the opposite end, it's like we're going to see coherent offense. It's going to be nice. We have, and for years I've been complaining about how we didn't have a ball handler, how we didn't have a playmaker, and now you got that. So I think defensively, yes, there will probably be some growing pains on the defense side, and there's already going to probably be some growing pains with or without Drew because we have a whole new defensive scheme that's going to be implemented. So yeah, maybe the defense will dip, but the offense, this is potentially a top, at least top. I would be surprised this is not a top 5 offense by the end of the year.
Okay, that's good. I think you both hit on points. I don't think anyone, or I don't think unless you're acutely watching and have paid lots of attention to the Milwaukee Bucks the last few years, you generally understand what it has been like to watch the offense peter out time and time and time again for the
That is
same
why Milwaukee
specific
has flamed
reasons.
out in the playoffs. Not
Yes,
defense,
correct.
bad offense.
And that's
Bad
that's almost
offense.
why we flamed out numerous times in the course of winning the title. We got there, but it was
Yes.
still like a very close run thing.
I remember when I did this, I couldn't find this article. I was trying to find it beforehand. But like if you look at the past 10 champions or something, in terms of the playoffs, the offensive rating for those teams is almost always like top 5. Defense is close to up there too, and that's like almost always the case. And we were the one outlier with an absolute junk offense. Like we great that we won the title. We won it with great defense, but that just wasn't sustainable. And pretty clearly that unsustainability was the main reason that we flamed out against Boston. That was a good battle, but then the battle against Miami was just that wasn't even a battle. That was like a slaughter. That was truly terrible. So I'm very, very happy to see Dame around. Okay, I'll keep moving here. Okay, Adrian Griffin and defense. Riley, what have you thought of the defense so far in the brief glimpses you've seen?
It's cool when it works, looks dumb when it doesn't, and primarily when Robin Lopez is out there. It's going to be real boomer bust. It's not the exact same scheme that Kidd was running out there, but sort of in that vein. It's like, we'll just blitz everything and just see what happens. And we have the personnel for the most part to kind of execute it, but I think we're going to get it in a lot of boat races, and I could see the glimpses of if the guys can maintain this once the playoffs come, will be a pretty tough out. I think we can take it up that notch. It just looks exhausting. Like it, and I can envision a couple of months into the season, Dame Lillard's not going to be trying to fight through screens. Are you kidding me? Of course not. It's January. It's January in Charlotte, North Carolina. Do you think he's going to be fighting through a screen to follow LaMelo Ball around? No. Which is why like a guy like Andre Jackson Jr. is great to have because that's just what he'll be there for. There will be dips throughout the season. What will matter is so long as no team really figures out what the solution to the puzzle is to kill us in the playoffs, I think it will be effective, but I won't be surprised if we get in a ton of boat races throughout the season.
It's going to be damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I'm just going to sit here and just accept it. There are going to be times where, yes, when you have Brooke and Giannis and Malik Beasley and then maybe like a Pat Connaughton, Andre Jackson, whoever, that defense is going to look really, really good with the right personnel out there. And there are going to be times where you're throwing Bobby and you're throwing Dame and you're throwing Campaign and Jay Crowder. Like there's going to be times where even Chris Middleton, there will be times where this team looks like they don't know how to defend anyone. And I've accepted that. It's going to be high risk, high reward. I think there will be plenty of there'll be stretches where Milwaukee will all of a sudden be on like a 10-2 run because the defense is just swarming and suffocating and leading to a lot of fast breaks. And there will probably be times where they are just bleeding buckets. And maybe not, it won't be like the Bud years where it's like they're just allowing 3-pointer after 3-pointer. It might just be dudes just getting layups in the paint. I don't know. And I can also see a lot of fouling some games where we're going to have guys in foul trouble very early. But I think it's worth a gamble. And I think as the team gets more athletic and with the right personnel, it can really thrive.
Adam, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you remember at all how deep, like how good the Bucks transition defense was on average under Bud? Was it like solid? I never remember it being much of a problem per se. So he must have been decent in transition defense as a unit.
I think it was normally okay, but if you remember, I think it might have been the start of last year. There were teams just like running on us really quickly, and it was pretty atrocious for, I would say, maybe like the first half of last year. But the weird thing was, whenever you looked at the aggregate numbers on cleaning the glass, they were normally doing pretty much fine
Okay.
in terms of transition
Yeah,
defense.
maybe it might just be small sample size. Again, some of the lineups running. It seems like the transition defense is also a little shaky. That's probably a difference in philosophy of how Bud wanted the offense to work and how quickly you get back in defense and everything. So that'd be something too. It's like, are we aggressive trying to get the ball back right away? Does that leave us open to, being cut up in transition opportunities? Yeah, and we have to see Chris in all of this as well. Chris is not the defender he once was. Can we deal with Dame? And if Chris is a reduced version of himself defensively, and if Malik Beasley stops caring because he's got the starting role now, so why should he try on defense anymore? The one upside is I think this is going to hopefully push Giannis to do a lot more actively on defense. He's already a great defender without having Drew as the main perimeter guy. There's going to be a lot more that falls on Giannis' shoulders to do cleanup, and he's capable of it. So I think that's a plus in that it's going to force Giannis more to the center stage defensively.
Yeah, I think that's been the most interesting thing so far is how much Giannis has seemed to really appreciate Adrian Griffin's style of defense. There was a Journal Sentinel article today with a couple components of what Adrian Griffin wants to do on defense. I thought probably the most interesting point was how he was talking about how important it is to make sure that they contest shots, which, Bud did a decent job in that last year of contesting shots. But I think that is a good point, that making sure that they're contesting shots, normally you're going to get, on some level, the numbers to go down at least a little bit, even if you have some sort of 3-point variability built in there. I will say, I'm not sure how it's all going to work. I think I agree with a lot of what you said, Riley, where when it looks like it's working, it does look like one of those defense where it's like, well, how is anyone going to be able to attack this? Someone does a dribble drive, they kick it out, someone's already there in the corner. They do another dribble drive, they kick it out, someone's already there. So if the communication is there, then I think there's a lot of room for growth. But I also, there's just a few things he's done that I've appreciated where Griffin's just already switched a few things up. There was this Xavier Tillman, Jaren Jackson quick action in the Memphis game, and Giannis and Brooke were the defenders, and they just switched it. It's like, yeah, why just do that? Like, sometimes there's just sensible switches that make sense. So I think allowing the team to do some of those things, I think will hopefully lead to better defensive results. But I don't know. I shouldn't say better defensive results. I think last year might have been probably the highest ideal of what the defense possibly could be if you're looking strictly at the metrics. But I think there could be some sort of unlocked potential here by having a different mindset.
There will be no fewer than 5 tweets this season where one of the people who are like known for breaking down film on Twitter say, this defense is a problem. And then then we won't go into the numbers at all because they'll be like, okay, but like we'll get like some clips like, oh man, if the Bucks can play like this in June, watch out. I'm telling you, book it. That's one of my guarantees this season. We're going to see that. So I'm not on Twitter, so I can't verify it, but I assume that's what's going to happen.
Okay, my last question. Who are your core 8 starters for the playoffs? Who's in your 8-man rotation? Just so we have it for the record.
Why are you doing this to me?
Hold on, I have to go.
All right.
I have to go pull up the roster
because I've been thinking about it, Kyle. So I needed to hear some feedback from both of you.
If there's anything that if there's a monument that this podcast is able to erect that continues far past when we perish from this earth, I hope it's the 8-man rotation gut check. It happens constantly. It does not matter how far into the season we are. Okay.
All right. I got it.
Okay.
All right. So Dame. Okay, so we can just get Dame, Brooke, Giannis, Chris. Those four.
Yep.
Problem solved. Malik Beasley. Cameron Payne, because someone else has to be able to ball handle, so that's 6. Bobby. Oh no. I'm at 7. I'll because of benefit of the doubt and historical proof, I'll go Pat Connaughton 8.
Oh, that is some slander. My God, you left. He's like part of my core 5. Oh my God, that's.
I can't do core 5 yet, but no,
Oh,
Pat Connaughton is at least in the. You know what? Until proven otherwise, I'll keep adding him. I was really close to adding AJ Green or Andre Jackson Jr. Just an FYI.
okay.
Wait, hold on, Adam. There's somebody that Kyle didn't have that's core to your core 5. Are you?
No, Pat Connaughton.
Oh, okay.
Pat Connaughton.
Okay.
Will always be part of my core 5.
Okay,
yeah.
so I'll do the starting 4. I'll do. I'm really nervous about Malik Beasley. I think Malik Beasley's going to get the nod. Pat, Cam. This kills me. This really kills me. You guys don't. I think it's going to end up being Jay Crowder. I think Adrian Griffin loves Jay Crowder. I think Jay has, for him, had a decent. I thought he was done. I thought it was over, but he's looked okay in preseason. It's going to be some small lineups, or we're going to be running Brooke a lot of minutes. But I think early returns. I think Jay is going to get the nod over Bobby. And yet, I agree that Pat is. He's stamped. He's in the rotation until he goes completely like can't shoot anything anymore. I think he's going to continue to be a lock in the rotation. Man, that's why I wonder about the big rotation, because Bobby is he's the guy that kind of can unlock some of those small big lineups. But what's the expectations on defense? So I'm going to do Jay. Really kills me. Everybody who listens to this podcast or reads Brew Hoop knows how much I do not think highly of Jay Crowder and what his abilities showed us last season. But
when the season prediction roundtable comes out, there may or may not be a comment from me about Jay Crowder in there.
Ooh, I love a good Brew Hoop plug.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. I won't even be editing it or contributing. That's great.
All right, Adam. We did the exercise. Who's your 8?
My 4. Well, the 4, the core 5.
Wait, oh yeah. Okay, Pat. Yeah.
Pat Connaughton, obviously, with the core 4. And then Jay Crowder. And then whoever we trade Bobby for mid-season.
There it is. Hey, there it is.
I'm having a hard time. And Marjon Beauchamp. Those are my 8.
Wow.
I am terrified of Malik. Malik Beasley has been fine so far, and I think they might need his shooting, but I'm terrified of having him and Damian Lillard defensively for too long in the backcourt. And I get that they're going to try and mitigate them, but I've spent many years talking about how I'm not really worried about Cleveland because we'll just pick on them when we need to. It would be, it would be wrong of me to then just say, yep, we're fine with Beasley and Lillard. So I'm going to take the gamble and go there. But yeah, those are my 8.
Bobby is absolutely going to cook as a member of the Orlando Magic in like March. I think
won't that be good?
It'll be awesome.
Enjoying gold.
Not only will it be
do either of you think that? Do either of you think about that? He's my big guy that I think we should trade and get an actual like wing defender 3-and-D.
Yes, Marjon.
See, I think if they want to get a big, they're probably going to have to part with one of Pat or Bobby, and then probably throw in Marjon if they want to get another big.
Never Pat. Don't get rid of Pat.
I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying if you want to upgrade your backup big, you need to trade probably one of Bobby or Pat to make the salary work to get a competent enough big.
Pat's more than an athlete.
I just think
Pat is more than an athlete, bro. You can't trade him. He means more than that.
My feeling is I just
We're
don't
talking
think
on the
you,
court, not his off the court
Sorry,
endeavors.
Adam, go ahead.
I know he's got some land to sell me, but
I just don't think you need quite as much of what Bobby is doing anymore now
It's
that you
true.
have Damian Lillard. I don't know. That's
Well,
my
yes,
feeling.
and also, I mean, Bobby was like, "Oh, thank God, somebody who can just do mid rangers and actually make them." I'm like, "Oh, it bud proofs the offense a little bit." Like that was Bobby's great upside, and Bobby is still very capable of that. But yeah, I would be surprised if he's not on the trading block right next to Marjan. But you're a Marjan believer more than I am, which is fine.
I don't know. He played like 3 possessions of decent defense last game, and I'm starting to get sucked
again,
in.
Marjan will have games where he's gonna look great, and
You're
he's
right,
gonna have
Kyle.
games where
Sorry.
I'm gonna be like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah. Where it's going to be literally the whole season of what we learned this week is going to be alternating Kyle declaring that Marjan made the leap and me declaring he's going to look great in a Magic uniform. That's going to be the entire season.
That might have to be the new recurring session in or out of
Yeah.
Marjan Poche. Something around that.
Great.
Okay, those were all my questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Good opening free talk segments. And now for the sickos who have listened to the podcast for years, we're at miscellaneous. We're going to get right to it. Rapid fire questions. You know how this works, folks. Random questions. I haven't told my co-host at all what the questions are. Some are Bucks related, some are not. Usually they're somewhat themed with whatever time of year it is. So let's get going. First question. Do you guys like haunted houses?
No.
Me neither. Okay. That was an actual rapid question.
I don't want to be scared. Like, I don't want to be. I don't want that. I don't want to be scared.
I hate being the guy who's in the haunted house who has to yell at the employees like, "You can't touch me! You can't touch me!" so I avoid them as a rule. Okay. Okay. Now that Giannis has signed yet another extension, is he the undisputed franchise number one? He and Kareem both have a ring. Kareem was the only other guy. I think Kareem probably still might be the better all-time player than Giannis. We're still getting there, but is Giannis like the all-time undisputed number one? When you think Bucks, you think Giannis guy now?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I was saying that after the title, so yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that when he signed the first Supermax extension, I was like, it's over. It's another guy. He chose to stay for real. Okay, topical. If the Bucks, let's hope it happens, go on, they win the 2024 NBA title, does Terry Stotts get a ring?
No.
No.
He's got to come to ring night as an assistant on the opposing team.
Okay, so yes, but with conditions is what you're saying, Adam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
And then leave at halftime.
Yeah.
Be escorted out of the arena.
Yeah, him and Griffin are all laughing, and it's like that Bird and MJ clip where they go in, whisper, and they're just saying the worst things to each other possible. Okay. I hope we live long enough to see that. Okay. Over under on the number of seasons that until Prunty is made interim head coach. I've set it at 1.5. Do you take the over or under on that?
Oh God.
I'm giving Griffin a full
Over?
season. Okay.
I'm gonna go over as well. Although I did almost have a question that was, will Adrian Griffin last the whole year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be a really weird ride, and I'm looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of content. Final one. This one is right in Kyle's hearts. We're going to see he's very, very high on this guy. Over under on the number of AJ Green starts this year. I'm setting it. I'm setting.
Over.
I'm setting it at 9.5. He started a grand total of 1 game last season.
I'm over.
Okay.
Over.
God, so far under. There's no way.
Really? Even if Malik kind of falls out of favor and Griffin's like, who else can shoot on the team? It's like AJ, Ray, get up here.
Just put Jay Crowder in the starting lineup. Then.
Okay.
I respect and
Jay Crowder
appreciate
in
what
starting
AJ
lineup.
does. I know. Well, you two really hate Jay Crowder. I mean, with like a nice passion, with a level that real quickly. I need to get this. Well, never mind. Sorry, it'll come up in the predictions.
Okay. Good. That's another good tease. We're getting good at the teases, guys. After like a decade of doing these podcasts, it feels like. Okay, that's all I had for rapid fire. I'll just hand it over to myself right away to do ink review. It's been a very long time since I last had an ink to review. I'm sure at this point I'm reviewing inks that I've talked about numerous times before, and people keep track and are very serious about this. This week we're doing Monteverde's Joy ink. So this was actually what I think the very first ink bottle that I purchased. We'll see. We'll do the usual. I'll show it to the camera. You guys can't really see. It's sort of like
Well, now that these will be on YouTube, people will also be able to see it.
That's exactly right. It's an orangey brown. Monteverde is a smaller ink company. I think they're an American company, I'm pretty sure. And they did this series of colors that were based off of emotions. And so I have joy, and then I think I have like, it's not anger because they wouldn't do that, but it's a red. I have to go look at which emotion it is, but I believe it was 10 different dyes. And a lot of these companies will do this where it's like, oh, this is like, it's like, you figure you go to Menards and you go to the paint section. It's not just blue. It's like baby blue, or it's like, it's everything has like a branded name. And so this was just like kind of a cool way that they set up the inks. I forgot how good it runs in my fine nib. I've struggled with the one pen that I put it in because I'm always pushing down way too hard. The ink's coming out like too quick, all sorts of issues. This is the first ink that I used in it that I like felt comfortable writing with it. And that's very remarkable because I have tried a lot of inks in the pen it's in right now. Dries really well, looks great, pretty much everything across the board. So Monteverde's Joy ink, I'm going to give it, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It looks, brown can be a little sad as an ink to put on here, so that's probably the one downside. Is it's not like, like, wow, look at that, but it's a pretty solid ink. So thumbs up for Monteverde. So that's my ink this week.
Right.
All right, on to next, Kyle's film review. Kyle, what do we have? What do you have for us this week?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I was in Colorado this past weekend. I got in Friday. I may have partaken in some activities, what that one does while in Colorado. And before I went to bed,
Hiking. He means hiking, folks.
I was definitely hiking. Yeah. I did hike. I did a little hike, but as I'm flipping through channels in my hotel room, I get to HBO and the menu came on. I had heard of the menu, like literally just heard the title and knew like Anya Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes were in it. Like that's all I knew. I didn't know anything like the context. I don't know if it was the state of mind I was in. I don't know if it was a movie. I just kept saying to myself, what the actual F is going on? It's a horror movie. It is twisted. It will F up your mind. You don't know what's going to happen next. It was entertaining enough that I stayed up to watch it because it was almost like midnight. I was like, okay, I was like, okay, this is way too effed up for me in a nice state of mind. I need to go to sleep like an adult. But I kept watching it, and I watched through the whole thing, and it was entertaining, and it was good. I think it's one of those movies that you really got to be in the mindset of being ready for anything to happen. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but yeah, it was good. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like once you get over the initial shock of the stuff that happens, it does become more like a thriller type of movie. Yeah, but in my state of mind, I was like, what is going on? What have I done? What have I done to myself? But it was enjoyable. I will need to watch it in a different state of mind as well. But the initial thoughts were, all right, I watched that. I don't want to watch it again late at night. But it was entertaining, and it was a lot of what the F. But it was a good movie. So check out the menu. I have no clue where it's on. Like I said, I was just flipping through channels. It was on HBO. So I don't know if it's on. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon or Hulu or Netflix. One of those three streaming things has to have it. Or HBO or Max, whatever they call it now.
I usually have a follow-up. Yeah. So you're not into haunted houses. I assume you don't watch horror movies regularly, or do you?
I don't like horror. I don't like the slasher horror, like gory stuff. I can handle like a thriller. Okay. Or like one that messes with your mind. I can do that. I just don't like the gory, like scary movie. They jump out and all of a sudden someone's head gets chopped off kind of thing. Okay.
And that is not what this movie is. From
There are moments.
Don't want to spoil anything. Okay,
There are
interesting.
moments.
Interesting that it got that high of a review. But okay.
It was like, I do understand why people talked highly of it. Like it is good acting. Like there was good acting. I think the story, it was a compelling story.
Well, from the Rocky Mountain highs, we're off to Lake Michigan blue for our predictions this week. I don't know. I didn't stick that landing per se. First predictions. Thank you for a golf clap from Adam. 2 games this week, both of them at home. Season opener for the Bucks against the vaunted Philadelphia 76ers. And then Sunday against the Atlanta Hawks. Adam, it's your hometown team, previous hometown team coming into Milwaukee. I'll leave predictions to you first. What do you think this week?
I'm feeling 2-0, and I and I will cede the rest of my time to. I'd like a statement from Kyle just about the Philadelphia 76ers.
This is what happens when you bank your franchise on a loser who can't get out of the second round and pair him with a bigger loser who has continuously choked in the playoffs, and said loser has burned every bridge and wants to leave anytime things get hard. This is what you get. This is why you don't do 10 years of being garbage and tanking, because all you have to show for it is a bunch of losers. And I am just loving everyone's failure over in Philadelphia. And it's only going to get worse for them.
Are you
Because now that Embiid has his MVP, there is, and we've already started, and I said this before, I would say, at what point do we start slamming Embiid for not getting past the second round? And he got his MVP that he was whining and crying about, and then he flames out in the second round, and everyone was on him, and I'm enjoying that as well.
Kyle, are you rooting for Harden in this? Are you hoping he makes it as messy as possible, or what's your angle on this?
I need him to just... I don't even need him to do anything. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing. Not showing up, having everyone constantly having ads, and Nick Nurse is the coach. Oh, this is even funnier for me. So, honestly, they just need to keep doing this, because the longer this gets drawn out, the more it's going to annoy people. Because I feel like if they trade him, then it's not... It's like, it's the opposite of Ben Simmons, where it's like, no, for the sake of everyone, just trade the guy and just, like, be over with it. This time, no, I need the full-on suffering. I am the sickos, yes, ha ha ha, yes meme right now. Someone can Photoshop my face into it, but that is the mindset I'm in with Philly.
And I can say real quickly, even though I'm not there anymore, if the Phillies, who are now about to go to a Game 7, if they lose in Game 7, it's going to get dark real quick in the town of Philadelphia. Yes, they still have the Eagles, but the Harden situation has been shrouded by both the Eagles playing well and the Phillies being in the postseason. So it is going to get rough in a hurry over there.
Yes.
Kyle, how about your predictions? Now that you've buried the Sixers.
2-0.
Okay. Yeah. Me too.
The Hawks game worries me because Quinn Snyder can definitely come up with some nonsense, but I have enough faith 2-0.
I'm right there with you. 2-0. Perfect start to the season predicted by all three of us. Nobody will keep track of that, thankfully. Thank you guys for hopping on the podcast. Good to talk to you again. Thank you all for listening to the inaugural episode of Deer Diaries. We're going to do the thing where we just continue the episode count from the previous iteration of the podcast because I'm too lazy to start over at one again.
And the feed, it's still the same
It's all
feed
the same
for those of you
feed,
that were subscribed before.
Yes. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where all good podcasts are found. Like I said, go ahead and comment on the post that will go up with this on brewhoop.com. Go to Brewhoop, follow all our weekly content, follow obviously all the game coverage. And thanks for listening. Share with your friends, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.